Welcome to SAG-AFTRA Foundation's Conversations at Home. I'm Audrey, Cleo, culture and trends expert for Pandora, a Sirius XM company. Before we're joined by our guests today, I want to let you know that the SAG-AFTRA Foundation is a nonprofit organization that relies entirely on donations to provide emergency assistance and free educational programs to SAG-AFTRA artists. This conversation is made possible thanks to the generosity of our supporters. Over the past year, the foundation has given nearly $7 million in COVID relief to more than 7,000 performers. If you're a SAG-AFTRA artist in need of help, please ask. And if you can help, please give. Details are in the description box below. Thank you for your support. Now, it is my pleasure to welcome Dan Stevens and Maren Eggert of the film I'm Your Man. Thank you so much for being with us to talk about this very, very charming, delightful movie.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
Absolutely. So I want to set this up for everybody who haven't seen it yet. And it's about a researcher, Alma, played by you, Maren, who in exchange for funding for her research, she agrees to shack up with a humanoid robot partner who is designed to be her ideal partner, played by you, Dan. His name is Tom. So Dan, I actually want to start with you. You got this script during the pandemic lockdown. What made you go, yes, German-speaking robot, sign me up?
Well, there were a number of things. First of all, Maria Schrader was directing, and that was extremely exciting. And then, the idea of working in, I guess, my second language for the first time in a long time really, really appealed. But once I sat down with the script, it was very, very clear that there was something quite special here. That it managed to be both funny and kind of philosophical at the same time, and it had me, feeling the feels and thinking big thoughts. But also, I could see great potential for this kind of screwball comedy emerging, and had a great chat with Maria, and then we were off to Berlin.
Wonderful. Maren, how is his German?
Oh, very good. I mean, he really did a good job there. Dan, you only learned it in school, I heard, and then you really trained for the movie, and we had fun there. I teach him some strange German words every day.
Strange German words. So now you can't say that without telling us.
I can't say it. Just to make him laugh,
All the dirty words.
No dirty words. No, just funny words. Funny German words. No, it's really good German.
Well, let's talk about, I want to talk about that a little later, Dan, and that kind of challenge that presented to you. But Maren, Alma is a really, really interesting character. I think a lot of people can see us in her. But underlying her, what I got was a lot of grief. There is a certain level of grief to her.
Well, yes, there is grief, of course, as in all of us. I think she has this breakup with a recent relationship, and then this thought about not having a child and so on. But I think, there's a lot of loneliness about her, and a part of her really likes to be alone, and there's the other part who doesn't want to be alone and looks for someone at her side. So, I agree and I don't, because at the same time, she is really having fun being alone and working.
Is that what drew you to this character, which we should mention, by the way, congratulations, you won the Silver Bear for this role. So congratulations for that. But what was that complexity kind of what drew you in?
First of all, this mixture of deep thoughts in it, and then at the same time the funny dialogues, the very smart dialogues. It was a really special script, and a special woman too, I think, and who's just living her life and not always in connection to a man. It's not always about men her whole life. Like, she has this, I loved about her that she is such a passionate worker, and yeah, and a really strange character too. And at the beginning, she's quite grumpy, and I love that too. And then, yeah, what really drew me is this journey of her to being able to open up her heart to someone else.
I love that. Their relationship is, I think, unique to say the least. How did the two of you approach this as actors? What were rehearsals like? How did you kind of workshop this script together? Dan, let's start with you.
Yeah, it was interesting finding the rhythm between them, because I think the usual back and forth, the usual scene partner interaction kind of by definition wasn't quite there, so it was a different kind of rhythm that we had to find. And I think it took us both a couple of days to sort of realize what it was that, I wasn't going to be giving what I might normally be giving, and I wasn't also able to do the things I might normally do. And so there was, I think once we found that sort of pattern where it's really Tom watching and listening and learning from Alma, and Alma, I think, sort of a little later than Tom perhaps realizes what he's doing, and there's this sort of interesting dance that happens between them. But it definitely took a few days of kind of realizing that was the rhythm of this particular relationship.
Maren, do you have anything to add to that and building that?
Yeah, well, I think for both of us, it was like I was studying in this humanoid robot, and he was studying in mankind somehow in these roles. So just like the characters almost, it was fun.
They're studying each other.
Yeah, well, yeah. I was studying AI, and Dan was studying what is mankind.
And German.
And German.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think people who are familiar with your work, Dan, would be surprised to hear you speaking German so fluently. And, for you as an actor and as a performer, when you have that added language challenge, how does that influence how you prepare for a role? What kind of challenge did they present to you for this film?
In terms of the preparation, it was pretty similar, I have to say, in terms of just, thinking and learning the lines. I would say with German word order, there's a subtle difference in terms of where the thought or the impetus of the phrase kind of comes in, just because of the sort of grammatical structure of German. I think it was, there was something appealing to Maria about the idea of a foreign actor, a non-German actor, I should say, coming in and speaking these lines, so that there was a slightly kind of alien foreign quality to Tom, but also that had a sort of added surprise for the audience. It's quite a surprising script and story anyway, but I think for a German audience and for an international audience to see an actor who they might ordinarily know in a totally different context, it sort of, I think it gets people to lean in a bit more.
Was the German part like getting back into it? I know you use like Duolingo.
Duolingo was a small part of it, but it was quite fun to try it out. Yeah, it's amazing how quickly it sort of comes back. And I don't know how fluent my German ever was, but it was never more fluent than it was that summer we made this film, and just being totally immersed on set, the whole cast and crew speaking German pretty much the whole time. Even though everyone speaks excellent English, but it was great to kind of stay in that zone, and it's a great way to improve a language.
So, Maren, did you speak to Dan in German the whole time then?
No, I tried to speak English because I wanted to train my English, but he would always say, "No, let's speak German." So we had a conflict there. But we ended up me speaking English and Dan speaking German, right? So yeah, would benefit both of us.
What a unique experience. So Maria Schrader, the director, she is also an acclaimed actor. And to bring that into the director's seat and bring that sensibility, what did it allow for the two of you to do in this film?
I think it made communication easier, of course. We had shorter ways to didn't have to build so many bridges because we were speaking of the same thing, really. And she knows exactly what we're doing, what actors are doing on set. So there was not so much to explain. And she's a really experienced actor and director. So we could only profit there.
Yeah, I think further to that, she has great sensitivity to just the little details that will transform a scene and get it going in the direction that you want it to go. And I think, I really like working with actor directors, and they just sort of, they seem to know which buttons to press. It's very efficient.
Yeah.
One of the things that I really did enjoy about the film is that, like just in human to human relationships, there's this evolution, right? There's the awkwardness between Alma and Tom at the jump, but then they evolve, and then there's this chemistry that happens. So tell me about evolving their relationship on screen.
Well, I think it's really amazing how Tom is processing, and how his algorithm, one of your favorite words that in German, how he's able to adapt to Alma in this very perfect and sensitive way. I was amazed to find out that Alma gets interested at the point where Tom gets more distant, or develops his own feelings and thoughts, and that's just where Alma starts to get interested, and that was really funny to see for me.
Yeah, I think we almost chart him becoming sentient, and so what starts out as a sort of a program that's designed to just sort of be around a partner and do the things that might please them. Actually, he's on a sort of parallel track of studying Alma and her wants and needs, but also kind of human nature as well. And so studying those things in parallel, it's quite a journey that he has to go on. And I guess that does become more intriguing to Alma, but also for Tom himself. I think studying Alma really kind of draws him in. It's an interesting project for a creature like Tom to study somebody as complex as Alma.
It's kind of scary when you say that we kind of see him become sentient, because that's kind of how I regarded Tom in a lot of ways. And it brought up for me a lot of questions just about AI and ethics around that. And I wonder, for the two of you, did it bring up those same kinds of questions? I mean, we're all still sort of in this lockdown and / existential crisis where we're thinking a lot about human connections. And did working on this film kind of influence, some of your thinking on things like artificial intelligence?
I mean, at least working on this, I started to think for the first time really about this question: if AI has a soul or something like that, or do we have to treat them as if they had a soul, even if we don't really know? So that question really came up for me. Yeah, what was it for you?
Yeah, I mean, they're questions that kind of always fascinate me, and long before this film came along, it's sort of, I'm always following those science blogs, and the kind of the developments in this field are so mind-boggling and pretty rapid as well. I find like every week now there's another story that comes out where you're just like, the strides that they're making in this field are incredible. And so a lot of these questions are going to face us a lot sooner than we think. It seems a sort of fantastical idea, and I think the idea of a project like Tom is still a little way off, but the philosophy and the ethics behind it, and how interwoven technology already is with our lives, and how much that affects us as human beings, I find constantly fascinating. And so I think what's great about the film is it doesn't try to answer too many of these questions, but it raises them. And I find with every screening I go to at the moment, the questions that people have afterwards are really profound, and they're facing all of us, and I think before, a lot sooner than we think, this kind of thing is going to be, in our lives, maybe not in a sort of necessarily in a romantic way, although possibly, but I think it's going to be here a lot sooner than we think.
I think the romantic way is going to be the first way we're going to have to answer these questions.
I'm sure there's somebody out there working on it as we speak.
Yes, 100%. Taking it back to the film story, the story itself, there is one scene, and I want to put a spoiler alert for everybody. It's kind of a very emotional scene, sort of a pivotal scene, but where we discover or rather Tom discovers something about Alma's past and how she was pregnant, was no longer pregnant. And for me, it was so emotional because you see their juxtaposition. Tell me how you approached that scene and yeah, that dichotomy, that kind of contrast between the two. Because what I saw was almost like the way that Tom presented the information, dissected the information, in a way felt almost like how a doctor would, in some regards.
Yeah, well, he has this instinct about him to put the finger really where it hurts, and because he really wants to find out about her. And yeah, and that's what I meant before, that she is able to open up there and to tell what happened. And I think it's two things at the same time. It's to tell this story and to feel this grief about it, and then at the same time the surprise about, oh, I'm telling this to a robot now. So I think that's the two things happening inside Alma at that time. Yeah, and of course it's always not easy with these scenes where you really have to make it work and make it real. And Maria also insisted there very much on the right emotions, of course. Still, I mean, the script is so very good written that I could really cling to the sentences, didn't have to improvise there or something. Just, yeah, it was well thought over before. So, yeah, it was easy for me.
Yeah, it's such an interesting dynamic, and I think it's one of a few moments in the film where you see the gulf between the human and the machine, where Tom is processing information. Like when, and again this is a bit of a spoiler, but when it's revealed that her the project that she's been working on has already been written by somebody in Buenos Aires, and just the sort of the fact of that is easily understandable, that somebody else has written this, just in the same way that the scene you're talking about, this is information that this has happened. But what that means to the human involved, what the significance that has, is actually a very complex thing to understand. It's like if I break a vase, it's like, oh, okay, the vase is broken. But what you don't know is the vase was made by my grandmother and it has this incredible, significance or something, and it has these sort of layers on top that you can see Tom really striving to understand, but doesn't quite make it. But it's that effort to try and get there. I think that's an interesting challenge for Tom and for the story in itself. It's like, are these two really going to meet in the middle? Are they going to find that human connection? Is he going to arrive at the fully sentient place in time? But it's such a powerful moment because it really highlights that gulf, I think.
And it really took me by surprise emotionally. I think it was a pleasant surprise, but definitely not where I thought this was going. And so I really enjoyed that about it.
Yeah, and his analysis of the sort of the greater significance of it as well, that it's not like, yes, this is a sad event that has taken place, but also linking it to thoughts about her father, and it is quite a sophisticated analysis that he runs. It's just not quite what we would expect from our sort of compassionate partner, but he runs all the algorithms and kind of he almost figures it out.
Yes. I wanted to say, Tom, that is not what an ideal partner would do. So
right. Yeah.
So this was the first film made in Berlin that was under COVID protocols. So how did that affect your performances? How did that affect production, Maren?
Yeah, well, the production very much, of course. They had to really work on it because there was no precedence like that before. They had to find out about the testings, how often do we have to do them, that to make it work. And that was really hard for them, I think. But for us, it was good because they really did a good job there, and we could relax and just almost work as if it was not there. Of course, everyone was wearing masks, and back then we weren't. We didn't know it, so now it's there all of the time. But back then it was new, so we had to get used to that, but it was okay, really not so bad. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it made for quite an interesting atmosphere. I mean, we were lucky that we got to shoot a lot of the apartment scenes and the two-handers in a studio environment so that we could kind of control the setting. Because I think if we tried to shoot that in an apartment block, it would have been a nightmare and really, really complicated and difficult to control. But also the crew were, it was quite reduced. I felt like I don't know if I've been on a crew that small since the kind of early indie that I'd done. It felt like going back to those sort of not quite student filmmaking, but it had a sort of a stripped down element that gave it some real focus. And of course, it meant that everybody was working twice as hard as they normally are. But even that, I think, kind of helped sort of fuel the passion for the project. And everybody was there because they really wanted to be there. And I think they obviously believed in the script and the story and in Maria's vision, but also there was something very, very hopeful about what we were trying to do. We all felt incredibly lucky to be making a film at all.
So where are Tom and Alma now?
I don't know. I mean, I think Alma's just right back in her flat working.
Right.
He's just back there.
Maybe he's finally allowed to help her out. I don't know.
I love that. Again, this is a spoiler, but I do love the ambiguity of the way that it ended. I love the questions that it raised for us, raised for Alma. In a time when people are still finding it so hard to connect with each other in person, to have those genuine connections. I mean, we're doing this through screens. I wish we were doing this, on a stage in person all together. I wish I could see that hair in person, Dan. What is this story? What is this film saying about the need for human connection?
It asks a huge amount of questions, I think, about human nature and why we are like we are, and I say, with the rapid intervention of technology in our lives, to really think about what remains of us that is human, because so much of our brain can be kind of outsourced to our phone now. So much of it is sort of taken care of by the great algorithm in the sky, and so I think it is a real chance to look at who we are and who we are with each other. I think and that's what's so sweet about the story, I think, is that it's not using two humans to explore that, but sort of somehow using an artificial human to sort of bounce those ideas off. And I think the script was written by Maria Schrader and Jan Schomburg, and I think it's worth noting that they're a couple in real life, and the story seems to me so infused with a huge amount of love for each other, but for humankind. And I think it's a real sort of, there is a real love letter written in there. And I think the wit of both of those people it really kind of infuses the screenplay.
Yeah, I think I was thinking about the really touching scene in the end where the other guy who has his female robot, and is really happy with her. And it's so touching because he speaks about himself and tells, well, I'm so ugly and no one loves me. And now I have this woman and she's so beautiful and fine and she loves me. And I started to think, well, why not? I mean, why not? If the alternative is to be alone and sad, why shouldn't we?
So what were some of your favorite scenes to shoot together? We talked about some of the more emotionally heavy ones, but there's a lot. I think the way that this film plays with tone is what makes it so charming as well. So what were some of your favorite scenes?
I love the scenes in the woods, really. I just enjoyed them. I mean, with the deer also, because we didn't have it there. Of course, it was made afterwards, but that day was very special in the woods, and I love the scenes, and I love the dialogues there in the grass, lying in the grass. Sweet little dialogue about how they met, where they imagine how they could have met. So I like that very much. Yeah.
Yeah. It was very liberating to get out in the woods after being, confined in this very controlled studio, to be suddenly out in nature. That was a really beautiful scene. I really enjoyed the scenes where I think any scene with Sandra Hüller is always great fun as well. I think she brings such, she brings such a great tone to the movie and really kind of sets the comedic tone, and is really the only other, well, I suppose you meet that man's partner, but she's the only other sort of android character that we get to meet. And that was great fun. The sort of almost like marriage counseling scenes with her as the counselor. It really made me laugh.
Yeah, that's right.
So what do you hope people take away from this? As they're watching, as many of us are still being very careful and being, again, cautious about how we connect with people. What do you hope the audience gets from your performances?
Maybe they'll learn some German. No, I'm kidding. I think, it's a chance to reflect on ourselves and our relationships. And I think, it seems to be, it's like all of my favorite films, really. You leave the theater and you just want to sit and talk about it with the person you just see. You just want to ask all the questions and kind of, all these things sort of flying out of it. I think it's a satisfying ending, but it doesn't wrap it up all neatly in a bow. There's some wonderful things to be discussed, coming out of it. And so I really hope it's that. I think that it just kind of provokes discussion about humankind and about where we are, and even about AI and how we might relate to that. Because as I say, I think it's coming a lot faster than we think it will, and it's going to take a lot of people by surprise if they don't take a minute to kind of consider their place in the cosmos right now.
A robot just delivered my food the other day, Dan. So
there you go.
It was adorable.
I was in Toronto recently, and I walked past the shop front, and I think it was similarly like a restaurant delivery service, and it had little pink trolleys outside this door, and the door, somebody had just written on it, robot entrance only. And it was like on a main street in Toronto. I was like, that is amazing. Like, that's not something you would have seen 5 years ago, and I think, it's only going to be more and more in stores and in banks and all sorts. We're going to be seeing this kind of stuff.
So Maren, what do you hope people get from watching this?
Well, for me, it's a lot about, of course, seeing Alma or feeling Alma. It's a lot about this conflict of head and heart, and I think a lot of people have that in life and experience that what they feel in their heart they can't live, or what they live is not in their heart, and other way around. And I think in this movie we describe that as just human and normal, and just what happens, and we can live with that, and we can accept that that life is so complex that we can feel one thing and think one thing, and just the point is to open up and get it all together somehow. And at least that's what I take from the picture.
And whether we like it or not, the robots are coming. They're coming. Well, on behalf of SAG-AFTRA Foundation, I want to thank both of you, Dan and Maren, for joining me for this discussion about I'm Your Man. The movie is delightful, and I hope everybody is able to see it. So thank you so much for sharing your insights.
Thank you.
Thank you.